City Council meeting this May 26, 2020. And I would have Claudia do a roll call.
Councilor Drabkin.
Here, and my apologies, I was trying to log in and was having some tech problems.
Councilor Garvin. Councilor Geary.
They are both here.
Councilor Stassen.
Here.
Council President Minke.
Here.
And Councilor Peralta is not here this afternoon. Mayor Hill.
Here. Thank you, Claudia, for doing the roll call. This takes us to our first area of business evening, which is interested audience members are invited to provide comments, and comments provided that require any follow-up from staff will be assigned to a staff. Anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter that is in litigation, a quasi-judicial land use matter, or matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person for a total of 30 minutes this evening. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom to request to speak. Once your turn is up, we will announce your name, unmute your phone, and you may send a chat directly to our city recorder, and she will announce you. So if there's anyone that would like to address the council tonight, please raise your hand through the Zoom equipment.
We did have Brittany Reese calling ahead, so she's ready whenever you're ready, Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Brittany. Good to have you with us this evening.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you. And hi, City Council. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. Never know with my kids running around. I wanted to basically just, I came, several months ago before the COVID thing, and I tried to give a public comment, but basically, I guess I came to the wrong meeting. Went really long. So I came back because my kids were tired. Today. So I'm calling today because there's a couple of issues that have come up, and I've probably let them fester a little too long, and I'd like the City Council to address them. The biggest one being that the surprises we've gotten, for example, in our water and light bill, I didn't know about any of that until after we started seeing an increase in our bill. Now, mind you, I'm sure the city posted that you guys had a City Council meeting and whatnot, but I particularly would have liked to see more engagement on other points of notice, like, for example, Facebook, Twitter, not necessarily Twitter, but you know what I mean? I would just like to see more engagement from the community in decisions like this. That's the first thing. The second thing was I had brought it up with my City Council member, Zach Geary, who has been incredible. I have nothing but awesome things to say about him, and we've met a couple of times regarding the homeless situation where they're using our taxpayer facilities. Now, mind you, I support and I give and I donate to the homeless community. This is not a slight against them. It is specifically having to do with the bathroom situation and the obvious drug use that goes on when those bathrooms are made available. Obviously, currently a lot of that is closed right now, so probably not seeing that right this minute. But when it was open, I personally almost witnessed the door was closed, but it looked very obvious that a drug deal was going on at the Mac pool. That's the second thing, and I apologize. I'm trying to break down 3 months of things that I wanted to talk about. And then the senior living facility issue, the fine that was attached to that, I actually see the issue that's going on with that, but I really wish that the City Council basically involved more community members in that decision before they voted on that. And then the last thing was hearing about the DEQ. Now, you can tell me to be quiet if this is coming up in a later meeting. I don't know if it is because I noticed it got removed. So if it is, I will be quiet on that. But I have emailed all of the data and the laws and statutes regarding the DEQ, and I really want to make sure that we have a huge, robust community involvement in that decision because of the long-term and potential consequences. If we decide to have them do an air quality check in our town, it locks us into possibly having them require certain things and doing certain things with our city. So that's it, and that's all my public comment.
Thank you, Brittany, for your comments. And again, yeah, with the COVID and some of the things, our ability to communicate has been out of the normal. But I think what I'll do is, Jeff, if any of those items would require follow-up, could you make sure that and Claudia would get to the staff member? Brittany, typically this is a time where we take comment, which is just a one-way communication to us, which you've done. And so I'll just have the city recorder and the city manager get follow up to you, and it could be through a city councilor also.
That's totally, I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure I brought this up because I believe it should be addressed from the city council position at this point. That's all. Yep. And you guys have been wonderful. My city councilors have been wonderful. Thank
you, Brittany. Okay, and I've got those down, and we'll follow up on anything that questions that you had. Any other would like to address the council this evening?
I just want to state that Councilor Garvin has joined the meeting.
Good. Adam, welcome. Seeing no other hands risen, then we'll go to our next item of business, and that is advice and information. And so reports from councilors on committee and board assignments. And again, I'm just going to go across the top of my screen. So Zach, if you'd like to report out to the council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On most of the committees, standard committees I serve on, no meetings or nothing of note to report. The Kids on the Block Technical Advisory Committee, it was wondering if we could we were pushing to get a joint meeting with the school board and the city council. I know they've got a lot on their plate, and I just wanted to kind of maybe bring it back up that maybe now that we're all Zoom experts, we could broach that subject and at least try and get back on their radar. So that might be a question for staff. And I don't think I saw Susan here, but maybe Jeff could give us we could try on that, or well, we've heard back and they said don't try back until later. But that one, and then I guess that's the main one at the moment for my update would be that question too.
Thank you, Zach, and we love to hear Hiram. He adds a smile to our faces. Okay, I'll run around. Let's see, Kelly, if you'd go next.
Well, since Jeff's here, I'm going to let him maybe speak a second or two on Visit McMinnville, just the high points. But I did want to mention that I attended the YCAP meeting today as a board member, and just wanted to let you know that they're doing quite well on donations finally. They have gotten their whole PPP grant in, and they're in the midst of doing some hiring. They are starting interviewing the youth outreach director, and they've also rehired 3 people that had quit in the earlier. They're looking for a part-time staff accountant if anyone knows a good accountant that might be interested in that. They'll probably hire tomorrow a client services person, and so things are looking very good there. Alexandra's doing a great job. And Jeff, could you just give us a quick update, Jeff Knapp, on what's happening in Visit McMinnville, really quick like?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We are. Let's start this video. Hi. So Visit McMinnville is currently in the last stages of planning for our presentation next month regarding our contract and our annual business plan. We have taken all the austerity measures that we can at this time we feel that is the most responsible, and we are currently strategizing phase 2 communication, that phase 2 of the governor's reopening. Right now we are currently we are not marketing for leisure visits to McMinnville at this time. We're recommending people give us a sort of a soft run opening, making sure businesses can accommodate traffic safely before we recommend. We'll follow the governor's lead on that. So if you visit our website, for instance, we're asking people to dream and plan. And once we move into phase 2, we will start with some safe distancing type messaging, promoting the businesses that are open and operating and following the governor's plan. We are on countless calls with city, county, and regional task force, economic development task force on our current state and reopening. And we feel like we have a really good plan given the, the unknown. I think we have a very ambitiously, we are cautiously optimistic and ready to be very nimble with our plan. So that's what we're doing at Visit McMinnville.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's go over to Wendy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have not had a MURAC meeting or any of our council or my extra committee meeting since the last meeting, but it's coming up the first Wednesday in June. So I'll have more to report at that time.
Thank you, Wendy. Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to report on things that have happened since our last meeting. So as you may or may not be aware, fraternal organizations have been allowed to reopen as well as restaurants. This is important because it reaches a lot of otherwise underserved communities in terms of food services. Also, the Sheridan Fire Department has received a $2 million grant for firehouse restoration. That is of note. And Business Oregon reports that they still have $100 million in their coffers for PPPs. In regards to our moteling program, 2 more households have been housed since our last meeting. And I really encourage everybody, if you use social media, to follow YCAP, to watch for current updates there of things that are happening, because they are doing a lot and they're doing it very quickly. There's also 3 more apartment applications that are pending out of that moteling program. So again, that is people that were living on the streets that through this moteling program have secured some sort of permanency, which has allowed them to access services, which now is translating directly to housing. So we are showing that a housing first solution really works in terms of getting people off of the streets. Those are happening through many different funding sources, including working with the Housing Authority for NED vouchers, that's for non-elderly disabled. I also would like to report that the biggest struggle, and I've reported this up to the state as well, that the biggest struggle that YCAP is facing right now in terms of placing people in housing is acquiring documents and paperwork. And why is that? It's because rental applications require things like IDs, birth certificates, social security cards. A lot of those things aren't easily accessible, and our DMV is closed, and sometimes you need one to get the other. So this has actually made their average timeline to get somebody into housing about 6 weeks. Whereas if they were able to access these documents more quickly, that housing would be more readily available. They have 2 cases of people that need higher level of care and are looking forward to partnering more with the county for some of those. And I will send our moteling stats to our city administration to be dispersed to the council and the public as sees fit. Or actually, I believe our city manager already has them. Yes, okay. Another barrier, of course, is finding housing that's within a price range, YCAP's price range. And at this time, there's an added level of demand within the organization. So because housing is such a rarity, YCAP is working, their housing specialist is helping and writing cover letters, explaining past problems with housing so that those don't additionally become barriers. I do want to take this opportunity to clarify something. I want to make sure the whole council and the city of McMinnville and our county knows that everybody that's in the YCAP moteling program is complying with all rules regarding quarantine. YCAP has provided some supportive services to outside organizations that are also doing moteling. That supportive service has been in the way of food boxes, so they have been providing food. Not everybody's organizations have been complying with quarantining rules, etc. But all of YCAP's participants have been complying with all of the rules of the moteling program and all rules related to quarantine. And I want to make sure that's very clear so that it does not get misinterpreted at any point. Additionally, YCAP is continuing to do more research into the populations it's serving. If our community wants to know how to get involved in supporting YCAP, you can again go to their Facebook page or their website. They have put together a list of kits, motel kits, etc. This helps people maintain quarantine. YCAP's providing food, but this is things like soap, towels, shampoo, and there's different options for getting those motel kits to those in need, including having them shipped directly or dropping them off at YCAP. Also, I would like to report for YCAP that from the E-Board, from the Emergency Board, they did receive COVID-19 rental assistance funds to the tune of $197,000. And while they received that final approval last Friday, those funds were just available today. And there's, of course, a criteria for them, again, on the YCAP website. But those funds are available for people that are receiving 50% or less of the median family income, and also those that are at high risk of becoming homeless due to circumstances related to COVID-19. I was also able to sit in with meetings over the last couple weeks with our county commissioners, all three county commissioners, the chambers of commerce for Newburgh and McMinnville, the Amity mayor, representatives from SEDCOR, Representative Bonamici, Representative Merkley, representatives from Unidos, Senator Roblin, Representative Gomberg, McMinnville Economic Development Partnership, and Representative Post. And they did restate in those meetings, and I'll restate them here, that physical distancing does make a difference in terms of flattening the curve. There's also conversation happening at the federal level about replacement pay in lieu of PPPs. That's at a very early stage, but that wasn't a public meeting, so I don't think there's any reason to not share our opinions about that. And so that would be a concept in which employees would receive their full pay to go back to work instead of employers applying for PPEs. That will not be in the HEROES Act. That would be in a subsequent bill. Let's see, what else do I have to tell you? Our MAHTF meeting is tomorrow at 10. I'll be done in 1 second. And I'm sorry for being long tonight, but I had a lot to share. Also, our state representatives are looking at some conflicting information when it comes to how industries are being regulated. I'm going to use the wine industry as an example, not because it's my industry, but because it was the industry that was used in the example given today. So conflicting messaging is that if you are visiting a winery and that winery is regulated by the OLCC, your group of 4 can arrive in a car together. If you are a farm worker and you are being regulated by OSHA, 4 farm workers cannot arrive in that car together. So that is something that's being looked into as well. Also, I want to make everybody aware that as businesses try to reopen and they need provisions such as PPEs, there are sites, there are links on our state representatives' website that can help you not only get in on group buys as businesses, but also to purchase American-made products. And I want to make sure our ag community knows that tomorrow, Wednesday, 5/27/2020, at the Yamhill County Fairgrounds between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., there is a PPE ag specific distribution. And they have, I don't have that note in front of me, but they have an insane number of PPEs to distribute to ag workers specifically. Again, that's tomorrow, 5/27 from 8 to 4. You can get that information out to any of your channels. Ag workers can get PPEs tomorrow at the McMinnville Fairgrounds. That's it.
Thank you, Remy, for that complete listing of things you've been able to be a part of. I'll run over to Adam right now. Adam?
Yeah, Airport Commission met. Our May meeting was canceled. YCOM, we're looking at a standard 3% increase and some wage adjustments, which I believe I reported on last meeting to bring us up to mark rate. We'll have a meeting here the second Thursday in June to adopt that budget. And other than that, I would definitely like to see if we could get a joint meeting with the school board JOB committee that we adjourned almost a year ago and still haven't been able to meet with them. So I think the reserves are getting low and we should move forward with that if we can get the school board on board.
Thank you, Adam. I'll go ahead and just report out, have been on the LOC call on Fridays, and last week we had Congressman Peter DeFazio, who is the chair of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, and he talked at length about the HEROES Act that Merkley and Wyden have been so involved in, and talked a little bit about the efforts that in the House they're putting forward for infrastructure, roads, and assets that have capital assets, and they're looking at putting that together, getting people back to work as we move into phase 2 and 3. As Remy said, Suzanne Bonamici was on the county call today talking about the HEROES Act also. So Washington's very engaged in trying to get additional dollars and support coming out. McMinnville Water and Light has moved to a Monday through Thursday work schedule now, 4 days, 10-hour days, giving longer service hours when they're open, and minimizing some of the contact on that Friday and the weekends. We've met every 2 weeks with the hospital, and we're getting reports back that they have PPE, they have capacity, and they're starting to do surgeries that they have not been able to do in times past. The Landscape Review Committee last week met, and the big thing there was we looked at the landscape plan for the Granary Row on Lafayette Avenue. I think this was our third look at their plan, and they're coming to grips with the things that need to happen from that perspective. And then I talked to a representative from the governor's office that talked about the governor's real concern as we're moving into harvest time in the agricultural arena with the workers that come in to help in the fields. And their big thing is housing and how the state is going to assist in that arena, because usually they're in bunk beds, they're not having physical distancing. So the governor has a task force, and it's an area that they're looking at and trying to get their hands around. And then also had heard from a representative from the governor's office that last Friday they were looking at the possibility of phase 2 coming in about 2 weeks. So if that falls true, that would be, in a week and a half from now that we'd be looking at possibly moving to phase 2. With that being said, I'm going to call on department heads. Chief, I see you up in the council chamber, so we'll start with you.
Councilor Drapkin had one more thing to say.
Okay. Remy?
Sorry, I'm looking, I've moved on the screen, so I couldn't find myself to unmute. Just wanted to tag on to what you were saying about the transportation. That came up also today. There was a question that was asked. It was that what is the likelihood that we can use the infrastructure package for the Newburgh bypass? And the response was that...
Remy, you cut out, so could you ask the question again? Or could you give the statement again?
Yes, I am reading copy from the chat session, so this is exactly the question and answer. Question, what is the likelihood that we can utilize the infrastructure package for the Newburgh-Dundee bypass completion? Answer, the infrastructure bill could be used for the bypass. Highway 99W and 18 have been designated by the feds as a high priority freight corridor and evacuation route. The issue lies with ODOT that is very difficult to get infrastructure consideration without the recommendation from ODOT as a major transportation project. We are making some progress with the new administration at ODOT.
Absolutely, and we are meeting with ODOT and the OTC. We need to get matching funds from the state to be able to get the infra grants. And we've talked to Peter DeFazio when we were back in Washington, D.C. last year. So we're working on that. Dave Hagelberg, that's a top priority for him.
Great.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to the chief now.
Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, Chief.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mayor, Council. Just some quick updates. I know people are curious about how we've been tracking phase 1 opening with respect to complaints or issues that we're seeing within our city, and I would happy to report there have been no issues that we're seeing from a law enforcement perspective. I know we've done a tremendous amount of communication throughout the city, by the city, and I'm happy to report that there's no issues whatsoever. A couple more things of note. With COVID, you know, our parks are always a problem area, and I will reiterate that the park rangers are both out and about. We've got 2 really exceptional park rangers that are out monitoring what's going on there and dealing with those sorts of issues. And again, in the same vein as of COVID, Mr. Towery was out of the office last week, but I think it'd be important that I say that that school district and the city will be in some discussions about how the schools fund or partially fund school resource officers as it relates to how they open. I know there's a tremendous amount of uncertainty with where we're going to be seeing things progress in the fall, and they're basically scaling it out as either it's a full open, a partial open, or what we're doing now is a remote. And I know we'll continue to be in discussions, and I would anticipate a communication from Dr. Russell here within a few weeks about what they're getting from the health authority, which then trickles into the Department of Education. A couple things internally, our corporal process, we will promote, as we had talked earlier, 4 corporals here, and we start that process tomorrow with Kylie's help, and thank you again, Kylie. And I guess lastly, I really want to say, I know we alluded to it 2 weeks ago at this council meeting where I discussed our detail, so to speak, with respect to burglar and thefts. We had seen, I had reported a sizable increase in the burglaries and the thefts, and as you may have read, either through our press release or the newspaper, that we had a tremendous amount of success, and I can't be not prouder of our staff. Everybody pulled together. I know it pulled some staff from the patrol section as these 4 officers went out and they did their detail. And I want to commend Sergeant Desmond for leading that group, Officer Eckroth, Officer Rohde, and Officer Williams. They just did tremendous work, and that's not to say our patrol officers didn't. As you probably read, they were integral in ensuring that people were held accountable and arrests were made. But 35 cases were made in a matter of a month, 49 arrests of 26 individual suspects. So you really did get a tremendous, I think we got a tremendous payback with that detail over the last few weeks. So I'm happy to report that that detail's done, and that we're going to continue to monitor what we're seeing out there. But I'll take any questions if you have any. Otherwise, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, let's go over to Heather. And maybe she maybe just dropped off. So let's go down. Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. I have a couple of things I wanted to let you know about. So on Friday, May 15th, the Emergency Legislatures Board recommended and the governor signed off on allocating $400 million of Oregon's share of the CARES Act, the $1.6 billion, to communities who are in that bucket of sub 500,000 population. So that was really great news. They gave us until last Friday to put in our reimbursements, and we have been tracking them. But fortunately, we found out at the, I don't know, maybe the 10th hour that they were giving us another week to pull that together. So we were happy about that. And we should have some decent numbers to turn in. And these are funds that are 100% reimbursable. So we're really pleased to have this opportunity and thankful that our partners at the state level see the work and the impacts on us locally and have generously made quite a large sum available to municipalities. Then I also wanted to let you guys know that last Wednesday we had our very first remote court. It was very successful. Not as many people processed as in a typical court, but it went really well. And we'll be having our second group of trials, or not trials, but appearances for misdemeanor court tomorrow. So wish us luck on that number 2, doing this remotely. And then finally, just a reminder, at your next meeting on the 9th of June, we'll be having the budget hearings for both the city's budget and the urban renewal budget. So you'll have another opportunity to get public input on the budgets. So that's all I had.
Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate that. Let's go over to Mike, if you'd report to us.
I'll have a resolution for you in a bit, Mayor. Other than that, I don't have anything to add this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Let's go to Heather.
Good evening, Mayor and councilors. My computer just crashed on me, so I apologize. I had a slide up that was going to show you building permit activity level. We did a presentation for the Yamhill County Association of Realtors last week, and I pulled all the permit activity level for January, February, March, and April, and was surprised to see it's doing really well. So to give you an example, we have issued 54 single-family residential building permits in those 4 months. A couple months were, it ranged between 8 permits 1 month to 20 permits the next month, but that's a good number for us for the first quarter of a year. And then for our commercial permitting, we were at $5 to $7 million in terms of a project valuation, and 7 large commercial permits issued in those 4 months. So we're trending well. I don't know if it will continue, but we're not seeing it slow down at this point in time. So that's good, and we'll see what happens over the summer.
Thank you, Heather. Kylie?
Hi there. Not too much to report this week. I do want to let the mayor and councilors know that in June, and then we're still working on the date, whether it'll be a work session or maybe at the 23rd meeting, we'll have a presentation from our consultants on the classification and compensation study. So they'll be providing an overview of the project, the methodology that they've used to form the recommendations, as well as the recommendations that they have. So I'm excited for that to sort of wrap up. So we'll be sharing that with you in a few weeks. And I guess just like Chief had said, we're going to go through our promotional process in the police department for the corporals. So hopefully we have some positive announcements on that front in the next week or so. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you, Kylie. I see, is Megan on with the IT? If Scott's not on?
I think Megan's just there for tech support for the meeting.
Okay. Let's move over to Walt. Do you have anything, Walt, for us?
Mr. Mayor, I really don't have anything special. It's been a very busy month from the standpoint of reviewing agreements, service contracts, construction agreements, and providing responses to various inquiries from the departments. But nothing of note that I think the council needs to be aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. And Claudia, anything from the recorder's area?
Nothing from me, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Jeff, welcome back. You had a long weekend.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to give you an update on the status of our contract negotiations with Visit McMinnville. Just as a reminder, and for those in the audience who may not be familiar with the arc of this conversation, probably about not quite 18 months ago, the discussion started around the Visit McMinnville contract, the scope of services they provide, and kind of the size of the budget. Through the course of several conversations and work sessions, including our budget hearing last year, we agreed to have a series of discussions with Visit McMinnville over the coming months to come to present you with a plan moving forward. This past fall, we had a work session with Visit McMinnville where the consensus of the discussion was to pursue sort of a 5-year strategic look at where we, not so much where we have been, but where we think we'll go for the next 5 years. And the expectation that was that we would negotiate a new agreement to address that issue. As some might like to say, events have overtaken us during the course of this conversation. So the update's a little bit different given where we are now and what we think the immediate future of the visitor industry may be. We are in the process of negotiating a new contract. We plan to bring that to you in June, along with a business plan that meets the expectations of that new project. Rather than launching a future uses project immediately, which we thought we would be able to do, there's essentially going to be language in the contract that says that during the course of the contract, the parties expect that they will mutually agree on a time to launch that project. You know, the reality is that Visit McMinnville is going to see a substantial reduction in revenue over the course of the coming year, and likely looking at a multiple year recovery period before their budget gets back to where it was even a year ago. And so rather than setting a hard date for when we expect to launch that study, we want to see how the recovery goes, and we'll bring that issue forward, hopefully at some point during the term of the contract, though. In addition, we've encouraged and included language in the agreement to help the Visit McMinnville build a little bit higher reserve, equivalent to at least 3 months of their total fixed operating expenses. That's a little bit of a new expectation. We also will have language in the contract that acknowledges the possibility that the legislature may identify new uses or potential new uses for transient lodging tax in subsequent legislative sessions. And we're going to have language in the contract that acknowledges that possibility, that it may change the relationship with Visit McMinnville and the city, and essentially gives Visit McMinnville the opportunity to make a first pitch at how best to use those resources if there's some legislative changes. In addition to that, we'll be looking at a 5-year contract with the opportunity for two-year renewals. That's going to be a little bit more consistent with the longer-term approach that Visit McMinnville has been taking over the last few years. It will be consistent with the long-term view set out in the city's strategic economic development plan. While Visit McMinnville has always presented to you essentially a one-year business plan. They've also forecast what they expect to happen in the out years. And I think that will, a longer-term contract will allow them to do a better job of multi-year planning and reporting that in their business plan. In addition to that, we expect to bring this back to you in June along with a business plan for the coming year. We just wanted to make sure that we felt like we were hitting the marks that we've talked about and also being responsive to the change in the visitor industry and the current realities of the lodging tax collection, the impact that will have on Visit McMinnville. So happy to answer any questions or address any potential concerns that you may have.
Any questions for Jeff? Thank you, Jeff, for that report.
That's all I have for you tonight. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. That takes us to our consent agenda this evening. We have 2 items on our consent agenda. We're considering the minutes of our October 16th, 2019 City Council work session meeting and the October 22nd City Council work session and regular meeting. Is there any counselor that would like to request to have items taken off of the consent agenda? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Remy and seconded by Kelly. All in favor to approve the consent agenda, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The consent agenda passes unanimously 5-0 this evening. That takes us to our only other piece of business tonight is a resolution, and that is considering resolution number 2020-32, a resolution accepting the CARES Act airport grant offer and authorizing the city manager to execute an agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. And so we'll call on Mike to update us and go over the report that he submitted with our materials this evening.
Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. I'll refer you to the brief staff report that's in your packet, as well as a copy of the grant agreement and the resolution authorizing the city manager to sign the grant agreement. When the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act was signed by the President in March, it included funds to the Federal Aviation Administration that were to be dispersed to airports that are part of the National Airport System based on a formula. Given McMinnville's status as a regional airport, our allocation is $69,000. The CARES Act funds can be used for any operational airport purpose that any airport revenue could be used for, and the funds need to be expended over within a 4-year period. So I think this is important allocation to the city, especially given the uncertainty around the Oregon State Police substation. This will allow us to put some resources into the airport fund that wouldn't otherwise be available. So unless there are any questions, staff would recommend you adopt the resolution as presented.
Any questions for Mike? Hearing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve resolution number 2020-32.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And it has been moved by Zach and seconded by Wendy. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? By nay. Resolution 2020-32 passes unanimously 5-0. That is our meeting this evening. We're going to be going into an executive session following our regular meeting. We had one before we started, and we'll have one after. Anything for the benefit of those on the line from members of council? Hearing none, I will go ahead and adjourn our city council this evening.